Hello, this is Ranjini Joshua. We are recording episode 75. We're talking to Myoshia Boykin-Anderson today, and we are going to be focusing on strategic communication moves that can expand your business, among other really cool topics that we're going to talk about.
Welcome to the PR Playbook Podcast, the only podcast giving you actionable skills and advice you need to execute a strategic PR program. Warning: what you hear next may lead to brand awareness and increased sales and customer exposure. Now here's your host, Ranjini Joshua.
Hello, Myoshia. Thank you for joining me today on the PR Playbook Podcast.
Oh my goodness, Ranjini. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited about being here today.
Good. And did I say your name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Just double checking. Okay, awesome. So thank you for joining us. I'd love to kind of get started just by learning a little bit about your background before we kind of talk about more on the strategic communication side. So can you give everybody a quick background on you and what you do?
Yes, definitely. So I am Myoshia Boykin-Anderson. I am the proud owner of the And Tech suite of businesses, and I say that we'll talk more about that a little bit later. But I own a couple of different technology-based companies, which is how I grew and scaled my business. Super excited about that. I'm a native Houstonian, born and raised in Houston, Texas, and we're super excited about H-Town, around here.
You took that to another. You're not just a Texan; you're a Houstonian.
Exactly. So super excited about that as well, and everything that we have going on just here in the city. It's just an amazing place to be right now. But I grew up in a small area in the inner city in Houston called Third Ward. So I'm from Third Ward, and growing up, I grew up in, literally I would say like the 6-block radius, right, where my whole life was just this small space. So it wasn't until I was an adult that I was able to like really venture out. But in high school, I took a computer class. It was like a support class, and I literally fell in love with it. I think like almost literally from day one, I fell in love with technology. It allowed me to sit behind this machine, right, and really solve problems. And I was so infatuated with that, and I literally poured myself into it. So I started with the co-op program there in high school. So I went to school half a day and then worked in corporate America half a day. Some of the organizations there would partner with the inner city high schools and allow the kids to get exposure. And I was very fortunate to be put in these positions where I had to really flex my technical skills, and I loved it. I loved teaching myself new things. I loved breaking things and fixing them back. So, and it's been like that ever since. I've been an entrepreneur for 23 years, which is quite exciting in itself. What an amazing journey. But yeah, I'm just a lover of technology, and it's afforded me an opportunity to create this legacy, if you will, of a company, and to create this lifestyle for myself. And I'm really grateful for the journey. I'm looking even, forward to everything that lies ahead of me. And so that's a little bit about how I got started and how I landed in this space that wouldn't necessarily be a traditional one to land into necessarily.
From your background. No, that's awesome. And that's a lot of longevity. 23 years is a long time, especially to be in tech. And we're, on this podcast today, we're talking to a lot of startups who probably hope to at least be in the industry for 23 years or hope to get acquired or whatnot. What kind of different strategic approaches have you taken as you grew and probably changed your business a few times to communicate to your audiences? Do you have any memorable experiences of ways that you've communicated to your audiences that have really worked for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say being a woman in tech and a minority woman in tech, one of the things that I've been very intentional about is
Mhm.
making sure that I always showed up as the very best version of myself, right? I always felt like I had to be a little bit better and a little bit sharper and a little bit more knowledgeable. And I made sure that I was just that.
Mhm.
I wanted people to take me seriously, to take the services that I offered seriously, and to really be able to see the value in those services. So I just remember always going the extra mile and then going even further, right? So
Mhm.
mediocrity was not an option. So it
Yeah.
we were always operating in a spirit of excellence, especially since I knew very early that I was starting a small business, but everything I did was big. And I knew in order to play in the big game, I had to do big things. And I
Mhm.
literally just started off like that, really pushing myself. And I think that is what has allowed me to progressively work through all of these seasons, right? Like you
Mhm.
mentioned, changing the business. This is, Antech Solutions is actually the second of my businesses.
Sure.
The first business I started in 1998, and it actually ran. I grew the business to a successful phase. We were, earning multiple six figures a year and all of that. But in 2007, I started seeing business dry up and just all of those things. So I shut that business down at the end of 2007. I took the entire year of 2008, really just thinking about the lessons that I had learned in that first business, knowing that entrepreneurship was always going to be for me. So rather than go back, and I'm throwing my air quotes in the air, to a real job,
Right.
I really just started a little bit of consulting during that year, but really figuring out what it was going to take to jump back out there, and to jump back out there in a big way. So I launched my second company, Antech Solutions, in January of 2009, and now we are a multiple seven-figure technology company, and really just being able to, like I said, just show up as an amazing woman in this space, but truly being able to set myself apart from some of the larger consulting organizations that are out there.
Now, I'm going to go back to your air quotes a little bit. I feel like a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of people that even that we work with, we're all talking about multiple streams of revenue. I think everybody has more than one job if you're an entrepreneur or startup. But how do you really make that leap? And I don't know if you've made this leap ever in your career or if you just went into entrepreneurship, but like from the real job to, what kind of confidence do you need to make that leap from doing the real job and your side hustle and then turning that side hustle into your startup? You
Yeah,
know,
I think that is such a great question, because you're right. I would dare to bet that a majority of our listeners today
mhm,
are probably in that predicament, right? They are doing well on their 9 to 5, right?
right.
They're growing and kind of scaling that ladder, but they also have this deep passion for doing something else. And right now they're kind of straddling the fence, and it's their side hustle, but they would want so very much for it to be able to replace their salary so that they can, go.
Yeah.
So I would say, the in my situation, it wasn't necessarily voluntary.
Okay. Okay.
So, and I'm sure you guys understand what I
Yes.
mean.
Yes.
But but I literally, Ron, I was on what I thought was my ideal forever job. I loved my job. I was working for a technical integration company. I had been in Washington, D.C., and they had just transferred me back to Houston. So I was back home, but I was still able to keep the same salary that I had on the East Coast, which, is different from what a salary would be down here in the South in Houston, right? But I was able to keep my same salary. and life, for all intents and purposes, was good for me. I was a single parent to the world's most amazing 5-year-old at the time. But but I was a single parent, but I really loved my job. And one day, my boss came in and said, "We are closing the office." And what I thought I had known to be true about corporate America was when decisions were made like that, there was really a transition period, right? Like,
Sure. Okay, sure.
but she said today they were closing the office that day. And while it was a great job for me, while I was making great money, I was living beyond my means. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was a single mother. So
Yeah.
that announcement that she made really hit me in my gut, like at the innermost bottom part of my gut. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And I remember in that moment, I was crying, of course. I had to excuse myself and go to the ladies' room, but I was really crying. But what I realized was that I never wanted to feel that feeling again. I
Yeah.
never wanted to be in a position where someone else would be in control of where I earned my next dollar. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't even, I probably couldn't even pronounce entrepreneur back then. I mean, I didn't know how this was going to happen, but I knew that I didn't want to be here again.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how it started for me. So for me, I feel like I was just thrown into the deep end, and I just had to, dog paddle or, try
Sure.
to stroke my way out.
I feel like sink or swim is almost like a little bit better because you have to swim, right? Like you have to. When
There
you
is
don't
no
have
other option.
right, when you have options, it's like, "Oh, maybe next month," or like, "Maybe next month." It's like you wish someone would like cut you off, right?
Right, exactly. Because we won't necessarily do it by ourselves, right?
Right, right.
And I think this is a really good lesson also, because because sometimes we have to make sure that we are literally, cognizant of the things that are going on around us, right? But again, for me, it started like that, and it took 9 months from that day in February of 1998. It took 9 months for me to actually start my business,
Okay.
because, of course, I had bills. I had a daughter, so I had to go out and get another job, right? So we always want to make sure that we're exercising good judgment and making good decisions. So my immediate course of action was to go get another job so that I could support the responsibilities that I had. But while doing that, I was thinking of a master plan. I almost felt like Pinky in the Brain. I think every day now I feel like Pinky in the Brain, where I wake up thinking about how I'm
Yes.
over the world. But but yeah, so that's kind of how this whole roller coaster ride, if you will, started for me.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think like, there is those options for people who are in startups to either get pushed into it or to, if they're lucky, they get to choose that, right? They get funding and they get all the things fall into place. But I feel like it's hardly ever that way for anybody who's in a startup, especially now in a tech startup. I mean, forget it. Like it's so challenging to get the kind of funding that you need. So you mentioned that you grew your business to seven figures and now you guys are really successful and you've been able to open other businesses from there. What do you think was the key to like growing your business and communicating with your potential like either customers or even internal communication? Because our focus is on making sure that you're saying the right things and having the right messages. How did you create those messages, or did they evolve over time? How did that work out for you?
Yeah, definitely evolved over time. And you know what? It's still evolving. I think it's a continuous evolution. But for me, it was important to make sure that our excellence started at home. And that means internally in the business, right? So as I was growing my team, I made sure that as the leader of the team, that I communicated what my vision was, and it was always one of our core values, and it has been my personal core value from the point I was a solopreneur to now being, the CEO of my company and having a team of leaders under me. Excellence was always my key core value. Like I don't want to have to anything. I want to make sure that the way we communicate is excellent. So we are not like, using slang or improper grammar, all that stuff, not even internally, because practice makes perfect. So I want to make sure that the way we communicate, the tools we use, we understood very early that if we were going to play in a big space, we had to look, we had to go big or go home.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so the tools that we use, the systems that we use, the processes that we use, all of that stuff, are that of what a Fortune 500 or corporation would use, because I wanted to make sure that we were always doing things excellent. And then that translated externally. Our clients saw how we were showing up
Right.
and all of that. So from the way we design our proposals and making sure that everything is branded, like really putting our best foot or feet forward, right? Really doing that, so
Mhm.
that if a client decided not to go with us, it wasn't because we appeared mediocre. Like we
Right.
will always show up so that whether you were looking at my proposal or one from, let's say, like when I first started, it was Arthur Anderson Consulting or something like
Sure.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's Accenture, and and just all of the big boys, right? The IBMs and all of them, making sure that if our proposals were right next to each other, the proposal itself would not be the reason why we would be, out of the running. It would
Right.
be possibly something else, but just making sure that we are able to compete with any other larger consulting company out there.
Yeah, no, that's really important. I agree with that. And I think that's where branding and all that stuff come into play quite a bit. We talked just, before we started here today, we talked a little bit about being a female in tech and a minority in tech. And how has that really impacted the way you run your business and the way you do customer relations?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting. I recall, instances where if I go back to the example of, looking at my proposal on paper right next to someone else's, there have actually in all transparency and honesty been situations where we probably made it through the first round or two of the selection process. And then as I walked into the room, it was an immediate mark or marks against me, right?
Yeah.
Just for showing up as myself. And unfortunately, there have been more than one instance like that.
Mm.
But I've developed such a resilience, and I am a true believer in not only who I am, but whose I am. As a Christian woman, I know that I serve a good God and my God has me, right? So if I did not get that contract, it probably wasn't for me in the
Was
first.
for the best. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And Ranjini, I look at everything like that. If if
Yeah.
I if
Agreed.
I do not get it, one, it's not going to be for a lack of trying. It's not going to be for falling lower than not meeting the mark, right? But if I end up not getting that particular contract, I truly look at it as a blessing in disguise.
Mm.
Because if I do not do that, then I'll exert this amazing energy that I need to be, to stay in the race. I'll exert my energy over stuff that's not even worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think we've all been there. I
Yeah.
think we've all been there. No, that's a really good thing to think about. And I think like you said, you do have to have a little bit of a tough skin, right? Like you have to be able to keep it moving.
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Because otherwise, it will, you know, in so many instances, those situations show up and the intention is to knock you completely off your feet.
Mm,
But we have to be so resilient, right? That it may knock us and kind of rock us a little bit, but we're just going to keep pressing forward. We're just going to keep pressing forward because there's so much goodness out there ahead of us. So we don't have time to, to first of all wallow in pity, right? Or have this woe is me and oh maybe this isn't for me. No, no, we're going to shake the dust off. We're going to use it as the fuel that we need to pick up a little more pep in our step and
mhm.
to finish this race.
Yeah, absolutely. In that vein, tell me a little bit about Beyond Belief and, when did you start that? Like when in your journey did you decide like that was going to be the right thing to do as the next thing?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So I almost kind of feel myself lightening up and sitting up straighter in my
Yeah.
seat when I even think about Beyond Belief. So Beyond Belief is the new business mentoring business that I've created. The program itself, which is a 12-month business mentorship, is called the Beyond Belief Experience. And it is a 12-month experience intended to help the entrepreneur who is probably, as we discussed earlier, in corporate America. They have an idea for a side gig. They're probably already engaged in a side gig, but they really want it to be their number one. So it's a mentorship to show you how to grow your business and scale your business and really just incorporating the things that I've personally incorporated to see the level of success that I've seen, right? It's and I was very intentional about the words that I use. So even though there is an element of coaching, it's a mentorship. And the reason it's a mentorship is because we're all on this journey together. So
Mhm.
so for the people who will join the experience and decide to work with me, I'm growing my business at the exact same time. So it's
Sure.
a mentorship because listen, we're just gonna lock hands. We're gonna go on this journey together, and we are going to figure out how we can reach the levels of success, create the lifestyle that we want, and not have to kill ourselves
Yeah.
in the process.
Well, that's almost inevitable, right? We're always doing, I think people who are truly committed to startup life, entrepreneurship, building something big, they're always going above and beyond. That's how they even got somewhere, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, no, I agree. It's nice to have, and I think that's one of the biggest things about entrepreneurship is like lonely at the top. That whole saying, it's hard to be alone, even if you have people all around you.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. And it is, your conversations are different, your problems are different.
Right.
Um, and and all of that stuff. So it's always good to have someone along the journey with you that's going to help you navigate those waters.
Well, this is great because I think that kind of actually also leads into the tip side that we were talking about of like, how do you suggest people who are passionate about their business just a couple of really key things they need to like impress into their mind to get started, to get moving, to get motivated?
Yeah, I will. So oh my goodness, I feel like I have so many, but
Yeah.
I'll speak from my experience and really
Yeah.
going back even to the first business that I created. The first and foremost is knowing that you are going to receive no's and you're going to receive them over and over. You cannot let that knock you off your rocker, right?
Mm.
You have to be able to take a no, to take it with grace, and to be able to figure out what it's going to take for you to turn that no into a yes. I'll tell a quick little story is that that day when she told me that they were closing the office
Yeah.
after I cleaned the mascara off my face, um, I realized that not only was I going to be out of a job, but all of the people that I served in that job were going to be out of a service provider because they were closing the office.
Right.
So, tip number two is always look for the opportunity, right? Always look for the opportunity because the opportunity that I recognized that day is, you know what? I'm going to print a list of all of the clients that I served there. And I
Mm.
served 63 clients.
Okay.
And I remember calling all 63 of them saying, hey, it's Myoshia. I know that, they closed the office. It's put us all in a difficult position. But do you have any projects that you need help with?
Right.
That was my opportunity, right? That was the silver lining, if there were one to be seen there. And I called all of them, but I tell you, all 60 of them said no. But that didn't stop me. I didn't let no be the end of the conversation. My
Yeah.
response was, okay, would you mind if I gave you a call back next month? Right? Some
Right.
of them said yes, some of them said no. But now I had people to call next month. And I did this for 9 months. Now the list kept getting smaller and smaller
Of
because
course.
after a while people got tired and all that stuff. But it's okay. For every no I received, I said, would you mind if I gave you a call back next month? So every month from February, March, April, May, every month, everyone said no until November. I was making my calls from that same original list of 63. Now the
Right.
list was down to 7, but it's November and I started calling. And when I got in the middle of that list, the woman on the other end, and I'll never forget her, I'm going to actually call her name is Naomi. But I remember Naomi saying, as a matter of fact, so look, it wasn't even a full yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and literally, Ranjini, I started my first business on those 5 words, as a
Yeah.
matter of fact. And I literally haven't looked back since.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the tip is to not let no be the final answer, or no does not have to be the final answer, right?
Right.
Number 2 is always looking for the opportunity. And then I'll say specifically from a technology perspective, if you're not careful trying to start a business out there, trying to do your business on the side, you'll end up spending tons and tons of money on stuff that you don't need. So
Yeah.
from a technology perspective, my tip is technology is not a one size fits all. You don't have to use this tool because someone else is using it. Use what works for you for where you are, and you can grow and scale from that. Because if you're not careful, you start spending money on something you don't need right now, and you could be
Tell
using
me
those
about it.
resources on something that's really going to propel you forward. So that those are some of the tips that I would say.
Yeah, no, those are excellent tips. I think persistence always wins. So always wins. But yeah, that's a long time. February to November, that's no joke. I mean, it's a lot of and in PR and public relations, we get a lot of no's. We get no's all the time. I always tell people that we are the masters of rejection because media says no to most of the stories. It doesn't mean it's a bad story. It's a timing situation. It's timing, it's perspective, it's an angle. And like you said, as a matter of fact, probably molded the way you probably pitched that lady as well. Right.
Yes, yes, it really did. And not only her, but everybody after that also. So
Yeah.
it was such a learning experience for me. And the persistence and the resilience that was birthed out of that, I've carried it along this journey with me.
Yeah. No, it's very important. This is awesome. So, if someone wanted to get involved with Beyond Belief, how would they go about doing that?
They would visit beyondbeliefbusiness.com is
Okay.
our email address. We are on social under Beyond Belief Business. And yeah, I would love for folks to just kind of, check us out. And if it's time for you to grow and you're finally ready to say, you know what, I'm gonna invest in myself, I'm gonna invest in my future.
Mhm.
It's really what it's all about. It's so interesting because on the site, I also talk about who it's not for, right?
Oh, okay.
So it's right for you if this, but
Yeah.
just know that it's not right for you if you're just out there playing.
Right.
Because I really want to see businesses grow. I want to see results. I want to see action. I want to see accountability. I want to see
Right.
all of that. So I'm super, super excited about Beyond Belief.
And how long have you been doing that now?
2 months actually.
Oh, so this is new. This is
It-
was it a COVID baby?
I think it was really kind of before COVID. Like I've
Yeah,
always wanted to teach and encourage
sure.
and I've actually been doing it,
You're right.
for years. I just decided this year because we had such an amazing year last year, even in the midst of COVID from a
Well, I
technology.
imagine if you're a technology company, people were scrambling. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had an amazing year, and I just wanted others to have an amazing, time as well. So that's kind of how, one day I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I just built this entire framework, and I'm really just pouring all of me, looking back at all of the lessons, figuring out what works and what doesn't
Mhm.
work, right? In sharing that with others so that they can truly figure out how to play this game in a big way, right? Like
Yeah.
why do it if you're not going to go big, right? so
Yeah.
so so really just trying to help entrepreneurs do that and reach the next level, whatever that next level is.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you for your tips. We are going to put all the links that you'd mentioned down in our show notes and all the social URLs. Please follow Myoshia as well as Beyond Belief Business. But we'll put all the links in there so you guys can grab it. And thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
This was amazing. I enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you.